Hello, and welcome to Spotlight On, the podcast that brings together business leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts covering a range of topics. I'm Nicholas Barton, founder and CEO of the Barton Partnership. We're an award-winning executive recruitment and consulting solutions firm providing permanent search and independent consulting services across strategy, sustainability and M&A, data and analytics, and transformation and change.
Welcome to the Barton Partnership's Women in Leadership podcast series. I'm Kiran Rasoda, Director in our Transformation and Change practice, and I'm delighted to welcome Ina and Maggie, co-founders of EOS Deal Advisory, a diverse, tech-driven deal advisory consultancy. Thank you both for joining me today. Can you start by sharing a little bit about your background and your career journey to date, please?
Background, most of my career in the Big Four. I'm an integration separation specialist post-deal. Been working very global. I moved countries 6 times. I do a lot of things in pharma, in industrials, and have been leading teams in the Big Four for many years. And we left about 4.5 years ago on a point of principle and started EOS 6 months afterwards, which now been running for almost 4 years. We got a little bit of surprise when we thought, oh God, 4 years, that's a long time. It feels like yesterday, which was our idea was we love deals. We continue to love deals, but we wanted to do them in a different way, which I think we have been achieving quite successfully since we started.
Great stuff. Thank you for sharing. Maggie?
So I also long-term at Big Four. I was actually the head of transaction services, so more predominantly pre-deal orientated. So I originally trained as an auditor and then did a few years of fraud investigations, which was very interesting, but not for me for a long-term career. And then moved to deals 20 plus years ago and really enjoyed it. So worked all around the world, always lived in the UK, unlike Ina, but done many global deals, again, industrials and defence and life sciences, but lots of different things over the course of 20 odd years.
Brilliant. In the context of your mission to disrupt the traditional deal advisory industry, can you share a little bit more about what inspired you to start your own boutique? How is EOS Deal Advisory reshaping the way businesses approach deals and value creation?
I think we didn't quit our jobs to start EOS, so it was not like we had planned and had a master plan that we just had to execute. We both went on garden leave. Maggie and I have been friends for many years, and while on garden leave, we started talking, and I think the conversation around we wanted to do deals different started popping up, and I think we then developed what that actually meant. And I think leaving a Big Four, the reaction that we had to it was a bit allergic to everything we'd done before. So we were ready to disrupt any piece of it, to be fair, at that point, because we said, well, if we're going to do it different, might as well do it proper different, not a little bit different. So I think that was the mindset where what we had in our minds. So we put together our thoughts on how we wanted to do this, and we approached some of our competitors, not the Big Four, but other firms. And they liked us, but they didn't really want to change anything. They thought it was highly profitable, and they just want to continue doing deals as deals were, which left us with the only one option of starting ourselves, a new career and being entrepreneurs at more mature age. Let's say a late bloomer entrepreneurs, let's call that. And I think because if it made sense for us, we did speak to clients before we started. And I think that was actually when we interviewed clients, both corporates and Ps, that actually when we were fully convinced that this is going to work, because we understood that there was a niche in the market, that actually clients wanted something different. So I tried to answer your questions. We're trying to be different in everything we can, from having a lot of women in the team, which is very unusual in the whole market, to be fair. I think we continue to be probably mostly the only women in the room. It's just if there's other woman in the room, it's probably going to be somebody from our team. But that's already better. It does make a difference. I think in terms of the way we work, we don't want to do the wasted long hours producing PowerPoint after PowerPoint, which actually doesn't answer any of the questions. We do much more thinking around deals, much more customized solutions for our clients, which means that we can actually come up with maybe more creative solutions to what we do. We treat client relationships in a different way. We're a much more senior team because we think seniority makes a huge difference. So we try to change every single aspect of it that we could at that point.
But I think the biggest change, or one of the biggest change, is that Ina and I working together and all of the team working together as one team, which is really about bringing that post-deal realism into the pre-deal. and having the people who've really, worked in real life in terms of supply chain, tech, HR, etc., bringing that knowledge into the pre-deal so you can come up with more creative solutions, but probably less wrong solutions, because everything is theoretical pre-deal, however much access you get. And so having that sort of post-deal mindset of what's actually going to happen and bringing that into the pre-deal, I think makes a huge difference. I mean, really is a bit, it sounds sad, but it is the love of deals. We really, really wanted to do deals, but we just did not want to do deals in the same way that we've done for the last 20 years. It was becoming very process driven, very just turning the handle, very from, and that's part of the market for the big four, assurance based, to get the debt financing, to give that sort of tick in the box, if you like, while we like to more think around the deals, get into tricky situations, tricky deals, and get the difficult questions on the deals and really have a think about those. I've always enjoyed those, as part of my career of what other people would see as the sort of poison chalice of a deal that we're probably never going to get done. Those are the ones I love.
And I think from a personal point of view, for us, we are very hands-on, and we felt in our careers more senior we became, less we did in a project. When we're thinking, a client commented that to us the other day, said, the person that knows most in a project does nothing, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good point, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is a bit sad, and it was even worse for us because we really like to get hands-on, to actually do the deals, do the projects. So I think it was also a chance for us to actually go back to doing project work almost full time, pretty much, which we really enjoy.
Brilliant. So you were listed in the 100 most influential women in finance for 2022. Can you share some of the core values and leadership principles that have shaped your respective career successes?
Difficult question, because it's not like we set goals. Well, we never had set goals of we want to become a partner in a big four, or we will become co-CEOs of a company. It's not like we think from that way. I think things happen as a consequence of what we're doing, and not that we set out to do that specifically job or have that specific status. I think what we changed, and I think probably that's what get us nominated to things like this, we changed ourselves enormously when we started EOS. We start feeling that we belonged in those rooms. In the deal rooms where the bankers were, where the private equities were, where the negotiations were happen. We enter those rooms differently. I think for many years in our careers, we didn't feel like we belonged. We were in those rooms, but we almost didn't feel we belonged there. And the fact that we changed our mindset, that it's like, no, we are supposed to be here. We are actually making a huge difference here. It changes even the way we sit in a room or the way we enter a room. And I think that perception changes people's perceptions of us. And that there's a whole domino chain effect to it. But I think we are with simple people. We don't like hierarchy. I think that's one of the important values for us. People in the team, it doesn't matter too much. I mean, because we're not attached to the hierarchy. I would have to only talk to the person below me, and then we actually don't see people like that. We don't see companies like that. We also, I think, kept our lives quite simple and continue to be the same. I don't think we change in that sense. So I think that makes things more real. So I think that's probably a value that's quite important for us. And I think we keep those values not just as we're running EOS, but as we do projects. So we're very comfortable saying, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. There are some challenging projects that we literally start from zero. We have no idea, which people in the more senior positions will probably never say that, because, showing a weakness that you actually don't know how you're going to begin that, which we are very comfortable with sitting and saying, oh God, we have no idea how we're going to do this. We'll get to an answer, but to start with, it's something that we're not comfortable. We're okay to not be comfortable not knowing the answer right away. And also how we relate to our clients. I think we have a very honest, opinionated relationship with our clients. And I think that's a big part of our success, because I think that's what they want in the end, is an opinion on what to do in relation to a deal.
It is having that openness internally and externally, because, most people are pretty similar. And, if you can get rid of all of these sort of facades and the internal politics and all the rest of it, then I think people much prefer to work in that environment and engage a lot better with you, and therefore have the opportunity to develop themselves, both from a client point of view and an internal point of view. But that whole no politics, no sort of internal management type piece. We just don't tolerate that at all, and therefore don't project that to our clients either. So that's not only does it save you a lot of time and effort, but it takes a lot of stress out of for people as well. Because, in these large organisations, I mean, we've all seen it, there's an awful lot of politicking, and it's very stressful. And obviously, and I were very bad at it. So we don't have any tolerance for that at all.
So when you're in your own company and you're driving that kind of thinking, that's great because you're driving it from top down, so people are following your lead. How do you manage that when you're working with a client? Because that's obviously not as easy to do.
Be confident of people's position and the culture of the client, and and how they operate. But I think by being quite open and transparent, and like Ina said, giving an opinion, stating how we've got to that, why we've got to that, but kind of also showing our vulnerability to the clients, engages them in a very different way and a much better way. And not turning up with a very shiny PowerPoint thinking I know everything, because I don't. And so why would I pretend that I do?
We'll probably have the relationships and the courage in a way to have conversation with our clients that probably nobody else would.
Yeah.
It's a very honest, open conversations on what has to be done and what is going wrong. And I think that probably gets to a solution better than everybody else that's telling them only the good news and not actually what the issues are. So I think that also makes a difference. And I think the last point is that not everybody is going to be our client, and that's okay. When you are in a more corporate career, you want everybody to be your client, and you just want more clients and more clients. That's not our mindset at the moment. We want the right clients, the ones that are actually going to take something positive from what we're working. Actually, we can work together. There is no way we can do the work like we do now in isolation. So it has to be a culture fit. It has to be a culture of what we're trying to achieve, the same thing. So it's not every client that's going to be our client, and that's totally okay.
Have you walked away from deals because of that? Because there's not that cultural fit that you just feel like actually we're not on the same page as.
No, exactly, and then there's no point, because then it's never going to work. So you might as well call it early, right? And they don't want what we're prepared to give. Maybe they don't want an opinion. They just want us to say yes to stuff. Well, that's not us. They want us to work to crazy false deadlines again. That's not us. Right, and that's fine. I'd say we don't need everybody to be our client, and it wouldn't work, so it'd be pointless anyway.
So, the firm has attained over 50% female representation across all levels. So, in an industry historically marked by gender imbalances, can you share some of the strategies and initiatives that have been instrumental in creating a diverse and inclusive workforce?
I think the first thing to say is you have to be very purposeful about that. Because it doesn't just happen. I mean, a really diverse team takes more effort, right? But the rewards are clearly much, much better. So it is worth the effort. But to think that it doesn't take extra effort in all aspects would be naive. And therefore, you have to really want it and continuously work at it. Because it's particularly in our industry where it is hugely male dominated, for example, on the gender front, it's so easy to slip down that hill. And we've had that in the past where we have, predominantly, only been sent male CVs because it's the easiest pool to go fishing in. Right? These are great people and all the rest of it, but we know we're not seeing the whole pool. We're not getting the diversity of the candidates that we want. In terms of experience and background and all the rest of it. And so you have to go back and you have to ask again. And things take longer. And then when people come here and it's a very different and diverse group of people, there's communication problems or there's different styles of working, and you've got to work through those. And again, then it comes to the culture of being much more open and more instantaneous sort of feedback, because you've got to iron those pieces out, and that makes for a very different working environment. And like I say, a bit more effort within the working environment, because if you've all got people, lots of little mini mangies, hey, that would be horrific. But we'd all know how to communicate with each other. We've all got a maths brain. We can all just go like this. Well, that's not going to help you get to a better solution, right? But it's a hell of a lot easier on a day-to-day basis. But long term, not a good outcome. So that's it's the recognition that you have to really focus on it and put the effort in.
Constantly. Because you lose it, and we constantly bring us back to, if you let it, we would be 90-10 again very quickly. You really have to fight it all the time. The way you receive CVs, the way you deal with your recruiters, the way you interview has to be different. The way you give feedback to people has to be different. It's a constant work to it. If you let it go, you'll flip. And I think that's where probably companies get it wrong, because they do a one-time effort and think, well, that solved the problem, while actually it's a constant effort, because it comes back all the time. I think the fact that we are very different also contributes to diversity in a way, because if we can work together, anybody can. We are different in everything. Choose a topic, we'll be radically opinionated in different ways. So I think we have very different capabilities. Everything about me and Maggie is different. The fact that we can work together, it kind of shows the way that anybody can. It's not like we're super equal and easy. It is a lot of feedback and but that's where the brilliance of it comes together, because we work together. We would come with a solution together that nobody else would, because none of our counterparts are working together anywhere.
Can you give some examples of, because you two are very passionate about where you are and where you want to get to, and the type of workforce and people you want to be surrounded by. How do you get your teams behind that as well? Are you doing messaging? Are you doing regular sessions around diversity and inclusion? What kind of things do you do?
By walking the talk, not by...
Right, okay.
There are no sessions. It's real life. We're not promising any. I mean, by just doing it, like if we want to value women, well, then you have to have maternity leaves that are amazing, and we do. There's a choice that we had to make where to spend our money, right? We especially in the beginning when we had no money, right? But we purposely said, no, that's where we're going to spend our money. That's really important for us, but also to respect women in our team, that some of them want to take 6 weeks maternity leave and some wants to take a year maternity leave. Whatever it is, we'll make it work.
Is that we'll make it work kind of attitude?
It's whatever it is. And it going to ups and downs that they have in their lives, not just women, but also men. It's ups and downs all the time, because that's what people's lives are. And we'll follow those ups and downs and as we go. And I think that's where we try to make a difference. We don't do sessions. I don't think that's actually going to make a difference.
Nicely takes us on to work-life balance, which is, universally now a much bigger piece of the pie, and what drives a lot of people's thinking. It's one of the first questions people ask now when they're looking at businesses. It can be particularly challenging in high-pressure world of deal strategy. Could you share some of the strategies for effectively managing that kind of balance?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're in deals, okay? So there's always going to be very peaky points, and when the deal's got to get done, the deal's got to get done, sort of thing. But I think the critical aspect is knowing when there's a real deadline and when you're setting false deadlines, right? And that takes an awful lot of the time out, because then you can approach things in the right way. And I think as well, for me, particularly in the in-deal piece, when you're in the run-up to the deal, you can do a lot of stuff, but there's probably very little that actually is really going to impact whether this deal should go ahead and what impacts value. And so it comes back to that, not having just a standard process and a standard scope of work, and you go through and tick everything. You've got thousands of boots on the ground going through everything. You stop and really think about what is important, what needs to be true for this to be a good deal, and let's go find that out. So you're actually utilizing the time that you actually have by thinking and by investigating the right things, rather than just, well, we always do this, so we're always going to have a look at this, and having the confidence in our sort of deal craft to know what to go and look at. And therefore reprioritizing that work into the things that are really going to add value to the deal and to the client, as if it's going to go ahead, or whether it should happen or not happen, and at what valuation, etc. It's that sort of thinking. And if you do that, the days we work are really intense days, but they're not long days. And you become very inefficient after a certain time. And then you start doing stuff that's just churning, rather than actual productive work. So I think it's really staying focused and that type of working methodology.
And I think it's a battle with our teams a little bit, because I think if you ask some people, they would prefer to do 100 hours of no thinking than 50 of thinking.
It's easier. It's easy. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. I'm not going to get challenged. Come on, it's human nature some days, right? I feel like I'm making progress, even though you are not making progress, you know?
Busy fools, hey?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think it is a constant work of bringing it back to, no, I don't want this process. No, I don't want your old slide. You can throw it out. This is a completely different thing. Can you sit down and think? Can we sit down and think? I think we do a lot of brainstorming, a lot of whiteboarding, and those things take a lot of effort, right? But it's the only way where you're going to avoid doing literally hours, countless hours for no reason. Maggie has this rule, which everybody hates, which is no PowerPoint that use I say so, because people literally produce 200 pages of PowerPoint, which are completely meaningless.
It's just their working papers.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. This is what clients see it, right? You get these huge long reports, which are basically working papers, without the turning of the, thinking and bringing the pieces of the jigsaw together to really come up with what your opinion is. And I mean, clients feedback to us all the time that they're absolutely sick of this. Nobody wants to read them. They want advice. They want the answer. They want you to help them. Well, that takes real effort. And not the real effort of producing 300 pages. A different sort of effort.
I know, when we caught up before, when we were talking about doing the podcast, you talked about the fact that you've only worked a few weekends in your whole full 4 years to date. Can you just share a bit around that? Because I know that by the nature of the beast, when you're working in the Big Four, you're working typically long days across weekends and everything as well. So has that been a purpose focus as well?
Yes, it has. I mean, when I was in a Big Four, I pretty much worked every weekend in my life. That's the way things were. I didn't even question it in a way, right? And I think for us it's different. I think, as Maggie said, if we do the thinking that we need to do, honestly, by Friday you need your weekend. You're pretty exhausted mentally in that sense, because you put so much into that. I don't think you even have the energy to go and that's not what is the point. I think in a very exceptional times we have done weekend work now because there is a deal timeline that changed or something happened and it was beyond our control. I think that's one point. I think the second point, Maggie mentioned to it a little bit, that we will have a conversation with our client. If our client asks us something on a Friday afternoon, can you give me on Monday? We'll come back and say, do you really need it on Monday? Or, why are we trying to do this over a weekend? What is the need of it? So I think we do have a different type of client relationship that allows us to have that conversation, to say, well, if you really need it, we will do it. Does it really is needed? In most cases, it isn't. And I think that is a different relationship with the clients, to have that open conversation. So look, that doesn't work for whatever reason. And that's why it's a change of mindset. But that is minimum compared to the thinking and the wasted hours, literally producing stuff that serves you no purpose.
As diverse co-founders yourself, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs looking to create businesses with a strong focus on real diversity, inclusion, and a positive societal impact?
Yes, it's a funny question, isn't it? Because our real drive and energy is behind deals and developing a deal business. And that was our entrepreneurial spur. And then you realize, how do I do that in the best way? And I think that's where then the sort of how you set your culture, as we said before, and what's really important to you. And obviously us still having long careers in this market where we don't see the diversity. We do still see terrible behaviour. We were out with a client last night for dinner and she told us a hair-raising story around, recruitment and it wasn't even unconscious bias, it was completely conscious bias within their recruitment process, where, one individual had the final say, which ended up looking very much like him rather than probably better candidates. And, this sort of thing still goes on. So it comes back to, drive your business. Do you want, think about your business? I would always say, go for it and set it up. Worst thing that's going to happen is that you fail and you're back to square one, but you're there anyway. But I think the diversity and the societal impact, etc., comes because of your values, in terms of and how you make those as a critical part of your business and see the actual value like we do, because our diverse team gives us better solutions for our clients. So it's how does it really enhance your business rather than being the nice to have.
A lot of times we wish we had started our own company earlier. Now, not that we ever thought about it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Not that we ever thought about it during our careers before it happened, to be honest. But sometimes we say, why didn't we start this earlier? But it never had crossed our minds. I think if people have the desire to start their own business, definitely go for it. That would be my advice, because I think we could have done earlier. It would be a different business in a way. And I think the diversity piece, as Maggie said, it has to be because it works, not because you're trying to be nice or trying to make your company look good. If you're trying to make your company look good, that's not ever going to work. It has to be something bigger than that to make that work. And it's a constant battle. It's not going to go away just because we started like that.
Yeah, no. And that's why I said real diversity, not just because it's a tick box exercise somewhere. Because I know for some people it can be for some, but actually you want it, if you're going to do it, then step into it properly to lead it rather than just have it as a tick box exercise.
Yes, and I think we open our minds also what the influence that we can make. We had some clients at some points that they bring the only woman in their teams, which is the most junior person they have, and to meetings with us. And because that's the only woman they have in the whole company, so that's who they bring into the meeting because we are there, right? And in the beginning, we used to get really angry at it because, that's ridiculous, right?
Well, they're just trying to make you feel comfortable in the room. That there's
that they have women as well. We're alive to this situation.
Exactly, and we used to get really angry at it, and now we don't anymore because they said, you know what? If a woman, junior, watches us in this room being equals to every man in this room, she will get out of here learning something. That's good enough for us at this point. Do you know what I mean? If we can make that little difference, we can see us sometimes giving them a hard time, right? And really position ourselves and being really opinionated about something. Well, that woman will have learned something today. And that's okay. That's actually a positive thing. So we actually had to open our minds also in terms of, I'm not going to solve every single problem, but if I can make an influence in another way, that's okay too.
Yeah, no, great. That's a nice segue into mentoring. I know that you also do mentoring for people that have got nothing to do with deals and EOS and are just people that are reaching out to you on LinkedIn. I know we talked about it in a little bit. That mentoring is really important to you both. Can you share some actionable advice for people that are listening to this today who are eager to cultivate meaningful mentorship relationships?
I think that the mentoring, again, is something we do because we enjoy and we think, again, if we can make a difference in somebody's life that has nothing to do with, even nothing to do with our work, or if we can give advice to somebody that will help them move forward, and why wouldn't we do it, right? That there is an important piece. But I think the way we look at it is slightly different. We like the mentoring stuff, but we think we women, we only really progress when women start doing business with women, because that's what men do all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And women are quite shy about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do mentoring, but I'm not. That's where we stop. And I'm thinking everybody else on the other side are doing
networking
and helping each other, getting better deals, or whatever it is in or getting better clients, whatever it is. Why wouldn't we do the same? So I think, again, in our daily lives, we try to help other women, giving business to them or getting them promoted somewhere else or helping their careers in ways that we can influence, because I think that's how we actually make everything progress instead of, the mentorship is nice, but that's not what's going to change the world, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Ina. It's incredibly frustrating that you have a lot of women's group and networks and da-di-da-di-da, and a lot of them, I haven't been to some for a few years now, but in terms of, we'll talk about the issues, talk about the problems, and you're like, but sitting in this room are really influential women who could all be working with each other, and yet that's not the conversation. The traditional men do not go to the golf club and do a round of golf to have a little moan. Well, I'm sure they do, but have a little moan about stuff. They go there, and it's like the classic, this deal was done on the golf course deal.
Yeah.
No, they're talking about business. They're talking about ideas. They're talking about how they help each other progress. Right? It's that business mindset, and not one of how do we do a bit of mentorship? How do we look at these issues, et cetera, et cetera? Well, doing business and being successful in business takes an awful lot of those issues out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And have you put that into action anywhere, or do you still find it's a bit of a
Every time
struggle?
we can help somebody on business, especially as a woman, we'll do consciously. If we can give a deal to a woman in a company, we will. If we can help them in any in a management position, we will. Or you should hire this person. Especially if it's a woman, if we can influence it. So I think we can help in many ways. We have a lawyer that we have met a few times, and she started her own firm. And we literally said, anything you need.
Just call it. We've been through that curve. So she can learn from that. So again, it's just that conscious piece of understanding that it's not a level playing field. It is still really tilted. So you have to do positive actions, and you have to be, conscious of this all the time within business.
And finally, what does the future hold for EOS? What does success look like for both of you?
Again, it's a hard question. I think in a way, we feel we barely started in our career. I know it sounds very weird. I've been doing this for 25 years. I think we're very ambitious still. We have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of energy. We have lots of plans to do. We just opened our US offices. But I think there's much more. I think we feel like, I probably feel I'm in the most, not creative part of my career, but the most, probably creative part of my career, that I feel like we can do things really, really different and push into different levels. So I think there's much more to come.
The success of EOS so far has given us a real great platform and a real good sense of confidence, and our team a good sense of confidence that we can really push on.
Yeah, because somebody told us the other day, well, you two women and a laptop.
Yeah, when we started, it was two women and a laptop sort of thing. Not far off, actually. So they really, occasionally have to have a look around and think, gosh, actually, this is really great. Us and the team have really built something good and fun, and clients, and pleased with our work. And I think the market is changing in our favour. Things are becoming more difficult. You do need to think about it more. Clients are looking for that advice and opinion, so you kind of feel like, actually, we're hitting a rich seam here. So it's good.
Well, look, thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you both again, and we love working with the business, and it is really refreshing to hear some of the things that you've shared. So thank you so much for making the time. It's lovely to meet you both. So thank you.
Thank you
very much.